Hello, hi everybody. You are here with me, Heather Nelson, for our live on launching corporate partnerships with a national event. Thank you so much. I welcome you all. Please, if you're here, put a hi, what organization you're from, some kind of thing in the comments, just so we know that everything is working. That would be amazing. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO and lead consultant at BridgeRaise. We're a boutique consulting firm that helps charities and nonprofits raise more money from companies. And one of the projects we have worked on is this one, which we're going to talk about today, launching corporate partnership with a national event. And the specific event is Take Our Kids to Work. And the specific charity is the Student Commission of Canada. And I'm so pleased to introduce to you my guest, Sharif Mahdy. So Sharif, would you like to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your role in the CEO of the Student Commission, maybe for those who don't know what the Student Commission of Canada is all about?
Awesome. Yeah, it's so great to be here today. Thanks for inviting me to be part of the conversation. So I'll start maybe just a little bit with myself. I've been working in some sort of form of youth work or youth engagement for 20 plus years. And for the past 15 years, I've had the privilege of serving as working at the Students Commission of Canada. And for the past 7 years in the executive director and now CEO role at the Students Commission of Canada. So we're really a national intergenerational charity that is purposely that brings together people, that's purposely works with others to ensure that young people's voices are heard and valued so that their ideas can be put into action. And we're really focused on making sure that we strengthen what already exists in the country, that we turn young people's voice into concrete action, and that we ourselves are healthy as an organization to be able to be strong and support other organizations. So really what we're all about is meaningful and sustained youth engagement. And it cuts across all sorts of programs, Take Our Kids to Work being one, but we have like mental health programs, the teen dating violence programs, all sorts of different programs that we're focused on that are focused on putting youth voice into action.
Yeah, I love it, and it's so interesting when you talk about it, because I know that it does really cross-cut not just all your programs, but how you do every single thing, and focusing on youth idea and youth voice and centering, making sure it's heard, and that it's not just a conversation, but there's like action too. I love that about you and your organization, Sharif. So with those kind of thoughts in mind, I can already start to imagine, and I imagine the people listening also can think about why this idea would make sense to you. But let's talk a little bit, just give a little bit of history about how Take Our Kids to Work ended up at the Student Commission of Canada, because people will have heard of Take Our Kids to Work kind of in general before this conversation. And in fact, they might even be thinking to themselves, hey, we didn't know it was connected to the Student Commission of Canada. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting when you look at the history of Take Our Kids to Work, which has now been, in our country. This is our 30th year that Take Our Kids to Work will be part of what's happening in Canada. We were part of some of those original conversations back in the 90s of when Take Our Kids to Work was being launched by an organization called the Learning Partnership. And I also happened to be in the second or third year of Take Our Kids to Work. I went to work with my dad, who it was a nonprofit executive at that time. And so obviously something worked in that day, and now I'm a nonprofit executive. But we were part of those initial conversations about providing, practical work experiences for young people to be connected to a workplace in grade 9 or in the early high school stage to start to get that career exploration going. And over time, it evolved with the stewardship of the Learning Partnership. It evolved to kind of go beyond just, parents and guardians, whether you have a parent or guardian at work that you can go to. And then when the Learning Partnership made the decision in 2022 to wind down their operations, they were looking for homes for some of their really groundbreaking programs. And Take Our Kids to Work was one of those programs that they were looking for a home for. And they reached out to a wide range of partners that they had worked with on Take Our Kids to Work. and invited them to kind of say, hey, would you be interested in, becoming the new home for the program? And we were selected as the new home and, presented to their board, presented to their team. And one of the things that really stood out for them was our focus on meaningful youth engagement. So the involvement of young people in the design and delivery of the event, and not just as consultants or as participants, but actually being meaningfully involved in thinking through what the event could be. And also other partners like educators and families and parents and caregivers and of course employers. But they were also really keen on our focus on equity. So for us, everything is grounded in our 4 pillars of respect, listen, understand, and communicate. And I'm really excited to share that those 4 pillars have now been kind of validated as a key framework for anti-oppression, for belonging and inclusion. And so embedding that kind of meaningful respect for young people and working with them as partners, listening deeply to what they have to say so we can understand the changes they're seeking, so we can communicate those changes. That focus on equity, I think, if I were to go back in time 2 years, I think that's what kind of sealed the deal for the learning partnership in terms of it coming to us as the new home. It was really great though, because the Learning Partnership really did some really cool innovations during the pandemic to broaden accessibility and inclusion. And we were able to kind of take those and level them up as well, coming into running the program for the very first time in 2023.
Yeah, it was, it does now looking back, it just seems like such a dream fit because, you did have, all of these components that made sense and a new layer, some new things to integrate or to further from where they were before. But I know one of the big questions was, okay, but this is a great program. There's a program fit. Our young people have a role to play in this, but it needs to be sustainable, right? And so tell me a little bit about why, what that looked like on your end, this idea of how it was going to be funded and, why you thought SCC was in a position to, find the funding to make this happen.
Well, for 30 plus years, we've been, really focused on that broad kind of, lots of charities are cause focused in the sense that they have a very somewhat clear cause, like there's cancer charities, there's children's health charities, there's charities focused on social justice, education, etc. And our focus is on the process of meaningful youth engagement. And during the pandemic, we actually started to see such a desire and a need to better integrate and engage and gather voice from youth on topics, like a surge of interest in our programs. We scaled quite tremendously, actually, and realized that folks were starting to see that the process cause is also an important cause to be a part of. So when we took on this program, we were hearing from young people that the pandemic had really disrupted how they were thinking of career exploration, how they were thinking of getting jobs, employment, even knowing what to do in a job. And so from a youth voice perspective, that sealed the deal for us in terms of this being something we would take on. But we asked the tough questions of how could this be meaningfully sustained? And through really great partners like RBC, who supported other Students Commission programs and also happened to support Take Our Kids to Work in the Learning Partnership, we were able to kind of say, hey, would you invest in this 3-year vision of really scaling and ensuring that young people can transform their communities through this program? It can kickstart an experience of career exploration that for lots of youth who are furthest away from opportunity, they might not be able to have that opportunity. And so once we had kind of identified that support was in place, it became clear that there was something, to be really direct, there was a product to sell that was in line with our social purpose and also would allow for the program to be sustainable with other corporate funders and supporters.
Yeah, it's true. And one of the things I think that is important, Sharif, is that when you were doing that work, you were thinking, okay, here are all the good ways it's good for the young people. And then together we start ideating about how can this also be good for the companies that participate. And you had RBC as a lead funder saying, these are some of the ways it's good for us. So you had that knowledge. And then what happened? You started going to talk to other companies about how it could be good for them.
Yeah, so our approach in terms of respect, listen, understand, communicate is really grounded in making sure that we are listening deeply to what our partners and our stakeholders are saying. And so it was relatively seamless, although a new experience for us to go beyond a corporate partner like RBC and to work with other corporate partners. It was relatively seamless in some ways because we were just practicing what we do regularly with youth when we were listening deeply to what we thought these partners were looking for. And in my role as CEO of the organization and responsible for the generation of revenue to sustain our social purpose, I'm consistently and constantly kind of playing this bridging role, bridging youth to systems, bridging stakeholders to product ideas, bridging voice and figuring out how to make that voice land with different audiences. So what happened was a natural kind of evolution of 30 years of work into a new and broader sphere, and really figuring out closely what these corporate stakeholders' needs were and how they aligned with our social purpose, which was really paramount. We don't want to lose ourselves in this process, what young people are saying, but also how we can have win-win-wins for the young people, for us, and for the corporate partners. And that process is why I love the work I do. I enjoy kind of figuring out that sweet spot of synthesis of where we can find those wins across the board. And then, worked with our various stakeholders and partners, the production people that we have, the folks who advise us on fundraising like yourself, Heather, and really thought through, okay, here are some different options with which you can engage and also reach the youth in a way that will land for them. And that really, that process of developing those like ideas, and, I think in a corporate language, we would say product, but for us, it would be more of a service, for the companies that benefits the youth as well, was quite, I'd say, quite the learning curve in the best way for us. It was how we really kind of got this program, I think, to a place of more innovation and more reach in its first year with us.
Sure. And of course, I mean, I'm sure many of the listeners can already imagine that, it's an iterative process. We put offers out and hear back, and now we're still in the early, we're talking about year 2. There was some adjustments, and there'll be adjustments in the future, but I love where it landed for year 1, which was this combination of listening to companies, and offering them what they wanted that also made sense within the context of what the young people at Take Our Kids to Work and at Student Commission and all the communities that you connect with want to. So it was an interesting lesson. And what are some of the things that in particular you heard that companies really valued out of the Take Our Kids to Work event that, you had to offer them?
I think the thing that really stood out from last year was, our theme last year was Everyone Belongs Here. Coming out of the pandemic, it was actually the first relatively, there's no normal now since the pandemic, right? But it was the first relatively more, what I'll say was normal is that we were back to in-person, but we'd also picked up all sorts of innovations from the pandemic that were never thought of as possible pre-pandemic. And some of the highlights from 2023 include the broad reach. We were able to increase the reach from 330,000 students to over 485,000 students through the fact that we were back in person. We were offering all sorts of ranges of options, and we offered a really kind of, my personal highlight was the Take Our Kids to Work Career Live show that ran for like 12 hours throughout the day. There was one student in particular who stayed for the entire 12 hours. And that really kind of resonated as like, wow, like this virtual piece is still important. We had some teachers say, I had a quarter of my class who had nowhere to go, and your program saved, your program saved us, right? So I think that was a big standout. And I think also companies really appreciated the fact that our team was so adaptable and was able to kind of work with them to design really powerful like media content that would reach as many classrooms as possible, and was able to kind of be responsive and adaptable to the timelines that we had, but also the timelines that they had. Like our team really, especially on our production side, really kind of pulled it together to be able to make it work for the companies, to get their voices and to get their messages out there. And I think for the companies, what they valued was that flexibility, that adaptability. We've had some repeat customers come back this year as a result of that. But most importantly, they were able to be reached in spaces across the country that they would never have been able to get access to because of this broad and inclusive focus of this event.
Yeah, I love that. So just to recap, a couple of things that for our listeners, if you're thinking about, putting together an offer. So there's some of the things that Sharif said, and I'd like to highlight. There was an opportunity for companies to interact through this live day with students directly. There's also was an opportunity for them to get their employees and or brand in front of students in a variety of ways, both virtually and through different materials that they had. So thinking about those connection points were really valued. Sorry, it's freezing up on me here.
I can still hear you.
Okay, good. I'll keep going. And lastly, that there was this adaptability and I don't know, the StreamYard is crashing on me. Can you still hear me, Sharif?
I can still hear you, yeah.
Okay. So I'll just toss it over to you in a second here and just say, and that your adaptability, and I think that is very common in terms of what companies would like. They want to be heard and see an opportunity for adapting the offer to meet their needs.
Awesome, thanks. I think I just lost Heather, but I'll keep going and just say, for us, one of the things that really stood out was the making sure that, I went into it kind of thinking that there would be, it would happen quickly in terms of we'd have a meeting and then we'd send a message out, it'd turn around pretty quickly. And, that became pretty clear pretty fast that in this type of work, we have to make sure that we're really patient, that we're adaptable, that we're meeting the partners where they're at. That, one of the big lessons that I learned in the first year or two of the entire experience has been to kind of prioritize making sure that I might have to send an email or a message 5 times before someone picks up, before someone gets it. So, for us, what's been really, really kind of important. Hello? I'm still here. Okay. For us, what's been really, really important has been making sure that we play that long game, that it's not about the quick wins, that in the highs and lows of the day-to-day of doing this, 1 week we'll get a no, the next week we'll get like a couple of yeses. Is just making sure that we're in that you don't lose sight of that long game and don't take the highs too high and the lows too lows when you're trying to reach out to these various partners and make something work for them. I also have to say that the pandemic's been great because it wasn't great, but the pandemic was great in terms of some of the innovations. It allowed us to kind of figure out virtual connecting, and all sorts of virtual meetings happen all the time, like even this live right now. But something is more powerful about the in-person connection and making sure that the in-person connection is happening in a really good way. So, for us, we've started to meet in person with some of our prospective corporate partners, and that's gone a long way to kind of building that trust, building that relationship, and understanding the needs a little bit better. So balancing that mix of like maximizing the virtual connection when engaging with corporate partners on these ideas, because it is more efficient in some ways, but an in-person meeting where people really get it can also be efficient in other ways.
Thanks for handling that well. I don't know what happened, but
No
I
worries.
appreciate you keeping going. That's one of the things we
We
learned
just
together.
modeled the adaptability there.
That's right. How to adapt. I love it. It's so true. And I know that even when, these things happen, when we're all running events and live virtual events, so you'll have to just be prepared for it. I love what you're saying. And I for sure, this sort of sense of, following up and virtual and live, and we also to throw accolades to the LinkedIn platform we're on right now. We also strategized through this tool as well when we're thinking about both thanking companies and connecting with them and working with them. Like, seeing it in this multifaceted way is one of the things that you and I have worked on a lot together, and I think has really served well. That Take Our Kids to Work is an initiative that happens in person, on platforms, on virtual platforms, in LinkedIn and all those places, as does sort of the relationship process with the company as well. And I think that's an interesting parallel that we've really seen come to life as this partnership program has been building.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's really, for us, the biggest thing, one of the things embedded in who we are has been to kind of make sure youth voice is centered. And sometimes we are not really comfortable, like with the spotlight or with the raising of the profile. One of the ideas we've come up with is humility, not brand. And the young people we worked with were like, no, brand, not brag. Like, let the brand speak for itself. But, using those various platforms, putting out posts, putting out things that raise profile and awareness was a bit of a kind of like, and still to a degree, we're still like working through it. But when we realized that it was in service of getting more access, more reach, more connection for the young people we worked with, on top of raising our profile and the profile of our partners, but it really was about getting, more participation, more access, more understanding of what we're offering and who we are. We've started to kind of shift that mindset of like, yeah, brand, not brag. You can allow, you don't have to, sometimes it's okay to talk about really high quality programs and work that you're doing in a more kind of out there kind of way than what we're used to at the Students Commission.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. It highlights those ideas, it highlights those connections, and it creates an opportunity for more connections and more education, more interaction, which is totally, it's in service of a bigger idea, which is that we want this national event to reach every student, right? And that's going to require more corporate partners, perhaps other types of partnerships as well. I just wanted to ask a question about one specific thing. One of the things I also thought was very powerful in how we've reached out to companies is really consistently done the research to look for reasons why they're the right companies to align with. And I know you've often said to me, like, I look at the research that you guys provide and really like, get it into my head before I have the conversation. And I think that's a really powerful lesson maybe for the people listening, how important it has been for you to be thinking about that intersection before you make the call or before you do the outreach.
Yeah, it's interesting. My process has been, I get a briefing of like what the company's all about, some of the historical things about the company. Even sometimes it's like since they were founded, they've been really focused on this, or it's family owned, still, like all those little details that are not little in terms of the impact, right? And for us, there's always wanting to make sure, first and foremost, is there values in alignment? Are we making sure that we are working with companies that are supportive of what we would be supportive of? And for us, what we're supportive of is youth voice being heard and valued, even on topics that we as individuals may not agree with, right? It's about youth voice being heard and valued. And for us, it's making sure that who's part of our network is also reflective of the communities we serve. Like, can the young people we work with see themselves in these companies, right? So so that's a really important part from the youth voice point of view. And then from just the kind of, I don't know why I think of it in this way, but it's like dating. You're kind of figuring out like how it's going to work, how it's going to drive, and where that link is. And for us, what that research does is it really allows us to, I read the profiles maybe 4 or 5 times before a meeting, and I sometimes don't even take notes. Just read it, let it become just figure out, okay, what that is. And sometimes I'll be like just in the middle of a walk or not even working, and this idea will pop up about, okay, this is going to be what really links us. Like, this is going to be what makes this work. And I think that folks sometimes underestimate the impact of that type of thinking, of really trying to kind of figure out a way in which you can find that sweet spot between what your social purpose as a charity, what the company's looking for, and who your beneficiaries are, and just figure out that way of interacting or integrating those pieces. And whenever we've been able to do that really well, we've had really good outcomes on all the work we do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, as you said at the very beginning, like, you really brought this program into the SCC, believing that there could be wins across a bunch of different things. And to me, that advanced research and that advanced thinking, when you go into those, you're really thinking about that already. Like, what's the win for the company too within this, kind of ecosystem that we've built. And that's why, following up quite a few times in different ways is worth it, because you already have this great idea and you're going to deliver value. And so it's worth thinking about it and sort of just really trying to get that conversation to happen. We only have a few minutes left. And one of the things I want to get from you before we go is, like, where next? Like, what's your dream for this national event and like corporate partnerships in this national event?
Well, it's interesting because when we first proposed this to some of our lead sponsors in the first year of just seeing whether this was going to work or not, we really we had proposed like transition to transformation plan. And
Right.
for us, a lot of the young people we work with are like, great, like, you have one day, but this is my whole life. Like, this is like, there's 364 days a year that I might need something around it. So our vision after kind of, last year we really were like, we got to do the basics right, or else we're not going to get any support. It's not going to work. And we knocked it out of the park, I have to say. Like, it wasn't clear that we would for a good chunk of last year. So also be like, don't lose confidence in your dream.
Yeah.
Even when you're in the weeds of everything. There were moments of like, what did we sign up for sure. But I think one of the things we'd like to do is think about how, November 6th or the first Wednesday in November is like the catalyst for something that would happen throughout the year. A lot of the educators we work with, the students we work with, the youth we work with, they're saying like, career exploration isn't just like one time. It's just one day that's going to change the trajectory of this. So we've been really thinking about, like our other projects we used to run a 1-week youth conference, and now it's become a year-long youth movement of youth working on projects throughout the year. We're also thinking about how can Take Our Kids to Work be something that is a resource, a space that any, one province let us know that they would be using our videos for the one day for all their career education classes. Right? That to us is a big win. So we want to kind of be able to catalyze more of that, so that these resources and products are evergreen, in the sense that there's something that this career exploration for you can start at any moment in your journey. It can start on Take Our Kids to Work Day. It can start before. It can start after. It can be, we even had some post-secondary students drop into our live, and as young as grade 6 or 7 drop into our live because they wanted to do something different that day. So there's also that just broadening of reach, and knowing that career exploration isn't a linear path. It's an event. It's multiple kind of things that happen in your lifespan.
Yeah, totally. And I'll just add on, because I have a little bit of behind the scene knowledge too. I think another really important kind of vision for it is that it is very expansive in terms of all the different types of careers. Like, first year we had to pick some, and this year again you had to pick some, but over time this opportunity to reach all the people and with so many different options, right? Because, even me, I'm still learning. When I see some of these videos from workplaces, I'm like, wow, that's a job I have never heard of. I'm well into my career. So I feel like, there's so many more opportunities for us to show what work can look like in all its different forms. And I know that's a really important thing, like that diversification of opportunity and getting that in front of a diverse group of young people as well. So be interesting to see where that gets to.
Yeah.
We've come to the end of our time. I know that everybody listening is getting so many nuggets from this. I love the conversation about alignment, about following up over time, the long game, this phased approach that they've taken at the Student Commission, where obviously a big win in the first year, but also like that just means there's more wins for this year ahead and for the future, because it's going to be a transformation. That's what I heard. So Sharif, how can people be in touch if they have a question after this? I know you're such a open leader and you share all the time. How can people get an answer to that question from you?
Yeah, so feel free to reach out through LinkedIn. You can DM me. There's a few coming in already, which is cool. You can DM me, or you can hit our website, https://studentscommission.ca, and you can see what we're all about. There's also ways to register and connect for Take Our Kids to Work if you're interested in learning more about it. But yeah, we LinkedIn or our website are the best ways to get in touch.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this time. If you have questions for me, please do send me a DM or put it in a comment. I will answer as soon as I wrap up. Thanks for your patience with my technical problems in the middle there, and for Sharif for keeping the conversation going. I know that many of you are eager to launch or expand your corporate partnership program, and there were some really great ideas in this session for you. So I wish you the best of luck with raising more money for your causes, nonprofits, and charities. Thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.